So you've already mentioned a few contributions that you've made to the congregation. Anything else that springs to mind?
Well, I guess the biggest one would have been the being on the building council for the really big construction that went on in the church in the early 2000s. We were co-chairs of the building council, which was in it, and we had those roles for 6 years. It started out as actually out of those cottage meetings that we needed to have space and building, and it was a very big project. The first thing that occurred in this wasn't the building council, but we had a finance group that was trying to program out about how the church could do something like this and afford to do it, and there are all kinds of assumptions made about that, about how if we had a lot more space, how fast we might grow, and how fast contributions might grow, and how much debt service we'd have to cover, and all these kinds of things.
That spreadsheet.
Yeah, and like all things like that, it was perhaps a little optimistic, but nevertheless, it was something tangible that could be shown to people when we had meetings about this. And that the council consisted of several committees. There was an architect selection committee and a survey committee of the kinds of things we needed. There was a building or a group that was called the design group, and they were trying to figure out how things should be configured in the existing and new space. And there was a publicity committee to keep people informed about what was going on.
I worked hard at that.
And there was
every Sunday we handed out green sheets, and the green sheet contained what happened the week before. So everybody every Sunday got a green sheet when they came to church, so they could see what was going on. We conducted tours upstairs while it was under construction, when it was saved. And I called them the hard hat tours, and we had to wear hard hats. Anyway, we did everything we could to keep people informed.
And that was a really important part of this whole thing, because we needed to almost all the major decisions that were made about that the design and development of that building were done at congregational meetings. That's where the decisions were made. The board did not make these decisions.
We made
And
a lot.
that was intentional, and I think necessary, because if we were going to be able to afford to build what we wanted, we had to have participation by most everybody, which meant that it was very important that they agreed with what we were going to do and voted to proceed. And there were three major votes that needed to be taken. That one was to determine, one was to contract with an architect to design the thing, and the next one was to do all the design drawings, and so that a contractor could be hired, and then the third was to hire the contractor to actually do the work. And these were very well attended congregational meetings that we had when these decisions were made, and we fortunately got at least 85% of the people voting in favor of this at each of the meetings. The last one to sign the contract with the contractor was 90%, and I think that was necessary in order to be sure that we were going to be able to pay for the things that we were doing. We still were short and ended up having to
Yes.
famous, you know.
Some people who had pledged to help had gotten angry about the design of the church or something, and that's when they went off to form Peace Fellowship. And when they did that, they withdrew their pledge. And so we were missing out on a lot of money when that
Well,
happened.
there were two people that would have contributed significant amounts. It wasn't like, this didn't totally cripple us, but it was, because it was very few people that did this, and the vote was 90% at the time, but we did have a couple of influential people that didn't agree. And
Do you recall what the price tag was for the building project?
about $2.5 million roughly. It'd be a lot more. I mean, it's a good thing we built it when we did. And obviously, what sold the building and got everybody fairly interested, and this wouldn't have happened without it, is that I mean, the design of the building was one of North Carolina's genius architects, and it was just, people first saw the drawings of this and they were just stunned.
And they wanted them. It's just like going shopping and say, "Oh, I want that." They wanted it.
And who was the architect?
Louis Cherry.
So after that was built, there was a controversy over the wall at the behind the podium, if you will. Tell me about that.
Well, when the wall was in the design that Louis Cherry had, but it was the last thing that was actually put into the church, and it was put in after services had already, we were already having services in the upper part of the building.
So without the wall, there was a rock background, just what you see on the outside,
Cinder
you
block,
see on the
right.
cinder block. It was just a hard background, and that isn't good for acoustics at all. And it, like Bob said, it was always in the design to do that.
To put the wall up.
Right, and so we had contracted with this place to do it, but they were slower getting it done. And so, as he said, the services started without the wall being put in. And then I remember the day they came, I said, "Oh my gosh, they're putting up the wall," and I thought that would be the most exciting time for us. Well, the people, I guess they'd gotten used to it not being there. They were so angry. Oh,
Well, some were. It wasn't like everybody was.
I thought we were gonna be lynched.
But it was, the timing of it was kind of weird too, because the wall went up the day before the church was to be dedicated, and the people from UUA were down here to participate in that. And it was, I mean, we put a lot of pressure on these people with the wall, said, "Look, this has got to be done. This has been drug on long enough." And they finally did it, and didn't finish it up until that Saturday night, and the dedication was the next day. And so people showed up for the dedication, and were shocked to see the wall. Something that many of them had forgotten that it was going to be there, I guess, because
Right.
we'd been meeting there and having church services for, I don't know, 3 or 4 months before that. And so that was.
But
And
any
then-
drawings of the church that they had seen beforehand showed that the wall was there. But it hadn't registered.
And it didn't seem to, people didn't seem to notice or think about the fact that if that wall wasn't there, there's no place to put anything in the stage. Everything that you'd have would have to be put up and taken back after each use. Otherwise, you just have a mess. And so there had to be something there in order to do that. Gradually, they agreed to that, but then there were ideas of trimming the wall and making it a lot shorter. And I guess the main thing was that there were several people who wanted to visualize the whole circle that's up there on the left side from any place in the church, and that was anyway. And the wall was it was cut down some in order to do that, and it was sort of a compromise. It was not radically changed, but it was changed so that more of the circle shows.
What were the best of times at UUFR? And remember, I'm also going to ask about what were the worst of times, so you might as well.
Well, I'd have to say that the best of times for UUFR now.
And why do you say that?
Because, well, mostly because we have a minister that has the kind of experience necessary for a church our size. We'd never been in that position. Well, I guess Morris was the first one. He was the right size for the church we were at the time. But one of the things that occurred as a result of our strained finances from the building projects, plural, was that we didn't have a lot of money to pay for ministers and staff, and so as a result, search committees struggled to find the kind of people that they were nice people that came to serve, but they just didn't have the kind of experience necessary to do their job, and nor did they have sufficient funds to be able to hire the staff that would be necessary to carry out the activities necessary in the church. And this went on for from the time Julie Denny Hughes left the church just shortly before it was the new building, the sanctuary was dedicated, to the time that we had the first and then second developmental ministers.
Julie was pretty popular.
Yeah, she was pretty popular, but she did leave. She was having ongoing difficulties with the board at the time. I'm not sure. We weren't involved in that, and so I can't talk about it. I don't know. Right. But she left, and to be honest, she was a fine minister from the pulpit. She, like the other people that we hired after that, were not particularly good at selecting and supervising staff, and that's a critical issue for a minister.
And we
you have to do this.
We didn't have enough money anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what were the worst of times at UUFR?
Well, actually, I think the thing that was the most, I don't know if it was the worst, it's hard to say, but it's kind of depressing to us shortly after the new sanctuary was dedicated and Julie was gone. The board at the time also decided, for unknown reasons, that we should have 2 years of interim ministry. Well, we had a new church that was really pretty stunning on Western, on Wade Avenue, and people were driving by. We were getting lots of visitors, and we had a real opportunity for the church to grow, and we had just these interim ministers that were sadly not only interim, but just really not very good at anything. They're nice people and meaning well, but they really didn't give very good services. They didn't feel as though they should be responsible for supervising anyone. And it was just we couldn't grow like we wanted to during that period of time.
Looking back at that, I think the reason we couldn't get the quality minister we wanted was money.
Yes.
And I kept thinking, well, we've got a wonderful church, we've got a wonderful location, people will want to come here. But they looked at what we were offering for the salary, and we just didn't get the applications for them. And so it was really a struggle to do that. I didn't realize the problem at the time, but looking back on it, I think that is the reason that we couldn't get a good minister.
Yeah, and it wasn't, and again, I don't want to say, to criticize the ministers that we had. They did the best they could. It's just that they didn't have the kind of experience that they would have needed to carry out what needed to be done in a church our size, because it wasn't a little place anymore. It had staff that needed to be supervised, and if they were going to be effective, and it had a congregation that expected good Sunday sermons on a regular basis.
So James has made it pretty clear to us that, and Bob asked him outright, do you think the salary is enough to attract good ministers to come? And he thinks we're getting pretty close to that. So that's good news.
And to his credit, he has done an excellent job of selecting and supervising staff. That's been the other thing that's changed the environment in the church in the last in the years that he's been here, and that's why I think we're in the best of times now. Well, actually, one other thing I wanted to say is, well, we did a lot of this stuff together on the building council. Gayle did most of it, and that goes from the time that the cottage meetings were done all the way to when the building council was gone and she was doing all this, providing all these publicity things and letting people know what's going on and how things had been developed. And without that kind of continuing emphasis and highlighting, we probably wouldn't have been able to get done what we did, because that held the thing together and kept the other committees on doing their job and finishing in time and making it possible for the next group to do what they needed to do to get their part done.
People want to feel that you're moving forward. And we could offer that to them. We could demonstrate that we were moving forward. And we had lots of meetings. I think involving the church in as much as you can is very, very important.